The following program is a production of Pioneer Public Television.
Hello and welcome to Compass, a production from Pioneer Public Television. I'm Les Heen, your host for Compass. This is a weekly discussion of public policy and important issues facing our viewing area. This week, we will discuss what plays a factor in deciding if a rural town will be successful in expansion efforts. What challenges do rural towns face in expansion? Many towns face a decline, but some are growing and profiting due to businesses and services that attract people. Are there simple solutions, or is there a lot more to it? We talked to Natalie Gower and Jim Geswine from the Millbank area and the hospital there, Avera, about how the hospital's expansion in Millbank would not have been possible without the support of the community. Here's Pioneer's Laura K. Prosser with the story.
Rural hospitals face many challenges these days, including a shortage of medical staff and declining services. In the last 10 years alone, 50 hospitals have had to close their doors, and 250 hospitals are on the at-risk list. However, the Millbank Avera Hospital is not one of them. This is their story of community success and expansion. Check it out.
For 82 years, the community in the area was fortunate enough to have the Catholic Sisters own and operate the hospital here in Millbank. Well, it came time to where qualified people were just a little tough to come by, and they just weren't able to maintain the personnel needed to go forward. And so they did announce about 13, maybe 14 years ago that they were going to have to close the hospital. Well, obviously the community wasn't going to stand for that. Millbank is a very progressive community, and they came to the party and raised $4 million locally, with the exception of one federal grant.
Millbank and the surrounding community, as we see it, is a very unique community. From a perspective, it continues to strive to not only stabilize, but to grow. And as a rural community, that's imperative. And so with that commitment from community, it has allowed us to grow along with that. The delivery of health care has changed. We know that healthcare, that pendulum has swung more from an inpatient basis to an outpatient delivery system. And so the building we exist in today does no longer meet those needs. And we're working to create a structure that allows us to be successful into the future.
The Millbank community owns the current and future hospital being built, though they have been leasing it to the Avera McKenna for the last 10 years and recently signed another lease with them. However, the community's ownership stands as a reminder of all that the hospital owes and wants to provide for the people of the area.
So we are looking forward to moving forward with a new model or a new delivery system of healthcare to our community. It allows us to have a building that will allow us to be successful. It provides resources to our staff who are very committed and loyal not only to our facility but to the community and to really their friends and neighbors that they are able to take care of. With that, we bring a level of commitment. That commitment comes in different pieces, whether it be access to health care, comfort of care, hospitality of care, and the list goes on.
According to Jim and Natalie, the best part of the new facilities is the new services and the convenience it will be adding to the community and the area it resides in.
We're going to have a new facility, latest in technology, all of the equipment that's necessary to serve the people the best possible way. Some new services will be available. One of them would be dialysis. We haven't been able to do that. We're excited about offering that here in the future. We've got a new CT machine, 128 slice CT machine. Again, latest in technology will be there. 3D mammography. And of course, one thing I should add is that we're going to have a clinic into the hospital facility. It's not going to be a separate entity. It's all going to be under one roof. You either go here for the clinic or go here for the hospital, registration, whatever that might be. It's all going to be under one roof, more convenient as well.
Our building will also have retail pharmacy available so that a mom with 3 little kids in the middle of winter no longer has to pack up her 3 kids into the car after she leaves the clinic, go to the local pharmacy. She's able to retrieve all of those services right in our building. We will expand cardiac rehab services. And then in addition to that, essentially every service we have will be able to be enhanced by state-of-the-art technology. So build it and they will come. That philosophy is there. However, we also know that we have to commit to the services we offer. And we believe that with a high-quality service, our community will continue to support us.
It just, no matter whether you're talking about the PT side of it, whether you're talking about an emergency room or whatever it might be, it's just going to be much, much more convenient, much more efficient, and the technology will be there to do what needs to be done.
As we are getting closer to offering a century of care in our community through the bricks and mortar of this building, we want to ensure that there's another century of care behind this one.
And with us now to talk about the economics that impact rural growth and expansion, we have Ryan Pesch. Ryan is from Moorhead, and he's an extension educator. We also have with us from Marshall, a community economics extension educator, Neil Linscheid. So Neil, Ryan, thanks for coming back. Hey, Ryan, I know you've been here before, and we've talked about rural economic issues before, so thanks for being here again.
Yeah, good to be here.
So there are so many issues when you talk about rural expansion, rural economies. There are winners, there are losers, there are things that work and things that don't seem to work. What sort of things are you seeing right now that seem to be working? And Ryan, I'll start with you on this.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially we're talking about kind of business expansion. One thing to throw out right at the beginning is that we know that about 80% of employment comes from existing businesses, right? So this is kind of the right thing to be talking about, as opposed to a lot of attraction strategies. A lot of communities thinking some plant or something's just going to be built on the edge of town is going to solve some economic issues. But in terms of factors, there's some study not too long ago about what was important for businesses in kind of a good business climate. There are 5 of them. I only remember 3 of them. And I think these are pretty solid. And I think a lot of people resonate with them. One is about kind of a solid business network. People feel like they're supported by other businesses in the community. Good local patronage. That is, people feel like customers, residents use their business, support their business. And lastly, that businesses have a say in local decision making. That isn't like their word trumps everything, but that it just shows that they're consulted and thought about, and people are reaching out to them.
So when you talk about customers and decision making and decision within local communities, we do see a lot of situations where people may not even understand what businesses are expanding in their own community because they may drive by it over day but not necessarily know what's in there, correct? And the products might, I know, Neil, we talked during the break about this. There may be products that aren't used in that community and inputs that don't come from that community, right?
That's absolutely right. The world today is not where you produce everything that's sold in your local community. Many of the manufacturers in rural Minnesota are selling products across the globe. They're also sourcing the materials to create those products from across the globe, across the U.S., China, India, you name it. Every part of this world is covered by what those businesses are selling and buying. And that means it's not always easy to see when big changes are happening, when your neighbor down the street's hitting a market and really being successful. It can be very difficult to see that if those products are not ending up on shelves that you know about.
Yeah, because all you see is you drive by every day, there are cars there, they make something inside, but you're not going to see it on your shelves. You don't know exactly how it's there, but it's still there anyway.
Yeah. And I think a lot of those manufacturing expansions are happening, or wholesalers or something that might sell to a different market, but people still judge, the economic health of their community by their main street, right? And there's certainly examples where, you might have a nice expansion of 20 to 30 more new employees, but it's in the industrial park, or it's in like this place a little outside of town, and it just looks like a big shed. And so, but then your main street has all these different factors that are at play. People are not afraid to jump in a car and go shop 20, 30 miles down the road. And so you say, boy, the town isn't what it used to be, but you might actually be getting, some good expansions by businesses in your community. You just don't notice them as much. Instead, you're making a judgment call about how well your town's doing according to whether the hardware store is still open or not, which is important, but it may not be the whole story, right?
Yeah, particularly because some of those businesses, as we said a moment ago, aren't necessarily buying much locally to make the businesses work, right?
That's right.
I mean, there are some examples of that, right, Ryan? Or, right, Neil?
Yeah, there are, and I think the flip side is also what we forget to look at, that we have this big global economy that our businesses are participating in. Yeah, that can be hard to see the benefits, but it also means that there are a lot of opportunities, that as a small business owner, you don't have to limit yourself to what you can sell here in this town. You can hook your computer up to the internet and you can sell your product anywhere across the globe. I'll give you an example of that. In the town where I live right now, we have a really wonderful local manufacturer called Clarkfield Outdoors, and they make outdoor apparel. A few years ago, the owner of that company, he decided to really change things up and use the internet a little bit more, and his sales have increased, several fold. He's found that opened up new opportunities and potentials that he didn't have before when he had salespeople driving around the countryside, or just thought about it as maybe a local or regional marketplace. And that's the kind of thing that's possible for anyone with an idea today.
So he's producing the same product, he's just selling it very differently.
Well, the interesting thing is that also the product mix have changed, right? You have all these new customers and they have ideas and things that they want. That might mean that you're going to move and shift things that you might not have considered a few years ago and start creating those.
So if it's not a product that necessarily is used locally in many cases, or it's not necessarily something that people might think of, what are these people who are looking to expand their businesses, what are they looking for? What do they want when it comes to making those decisions?
Well, I think what Ryan said, if you're in a community where you feel like you're part of the community, you feel like you're supported, your ideas are heard, and they're willing to tolerate your failures, I think that goes a long way. And it's those local people that have that idea that we're really looking for, that we really want to find. It might seem like a crazy idea to everyone that sits around in the coffee shop, but it might also be the idea that makes millions. It might be the idea that supports a family or several families in that community. But we have to have that openness in our community to say, yeah, that's okay to have that crazy idea. Yeah, we're not going to shame you if it fails. We're not going to make you a bad person if that doesn't work out. I think on the other side of it, that consumer side, if you think about shame and how powerful a weapon it can be, how many times, Ryan, have you heard where the buy local strategy is really, well, we should make our customers feel bad for not buying local. Right. And my response is that shame is not a marketing tool. It doesn't work. It's not a selling strategy. And what gets people motivated is to feel like there's opportunities, there's value, there's something that I can't get here in this town or at this store or anywhere else.
But to add on it in terms of factors and the entrepreneurs, oftentimes entrepreneurs want the same things just community members want. We did a business retention effort in a community that was just geared on manufacturing. And you think manufacturers would all be about real hard-nosed. It's all about labor rates and regulations and these kinds of things, access to capital, access to a highway. Well, those things we heard from those business owners. However, we also heard, the main reason I'm here is because I love the lakes. I love this community. I think, I like the network of people in this community. I feel like this is home. So these things seem like kind of fluffy like they shouldn't matter. But in all actuality, I mean, the entrepreneurs and people that run these businesses are people, and they do matter, actually, in terms of the decisions of whether they're going to stay in this community and expand in this community, or whether they're going to pull up stakes and move to another community, right? What is it that's holding them there? And so I think for anybody that's listening out there, I mean, what holds you in your community, it's probably the same thing there for entrepreneurs, you know. Do you think there's a good network of people? Are people positive about this community, feeling good about it? Do you feel good about your community? I mean, if you do, there's a good chance a local entrepreneur would too.
So the role of attitude is incredibly important, it sounds like, in the decisions for the entrepreneur and for the acceptance of the community.
Oh, I definitely think so. And, you know, as Neil's talking about, capital and business and some of these things are a lot more mobile than they used to be. And so, again, it's about learning about your place, improving your place. In the community development field where we work, a lot of conversation is now about creative placemaking. How do you build essentially a good community? And a lot of it, again, comes down to some of this fluffy stuff in terms of creativity and local leadership, right? The same things that would make it a good community usually makes it good for a business as well.
Now, when you look at some of the differences from community to community, I think the Business Retention and Expansion Program, or those studies which have been around now for about 25 years, and both of you at the University of Minnesota have experience with that. Do those studies sort of drill down to say, okay, what's going on in this community or this county versus another one? And are there some sort of trends you can identify from those, Ryan?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, we're doing a number of these every year. And the whole idea is, instead of just thinking about what our local businesses might need, we actually organize people to go visit those businesses and figure out from the horse's mouth what they actually do need.
Ask the question.
Ask the question, right? Otherwise, there's a lot of hearsay. And so when we do this from community to community, there's certainly some trends that we're seeing. I know one big one is this issue about business succession. You know, right now, a lot of our businesses are still in the hands of baby boomers who are looking to transition, looking to retire over the next 5-10 years. And so that's an issue that's looming pretty big on the landscape. And that's the same whether it's a suburban community, urban, or rural. We're all kind of in this place where there's a changing of generations. And so for communities that are able to figure out how can we retain that business while at the same time successfully transitioning it to a new owner or maybe somebody in that family, they're better suited to be more successful as a community.
Neil, are you seeing that as well?
Absolutely. Succession planning is a hot topic, and it's something that we could have seen coming for years if we look at the demographics of our region, and we should take that lesson and continue to project out and realize it's going to keep happening. We're not going to solve it. We're going to have to figure out what to do with businesses that are still productive and useful. But you asked about the trends that we could see across those reports. And I think the trend that I see is that there's a group of people that are committed enough to do something. And to do a project like a business retention and expansion project, it requires about a year of planning and effort and really getting out there and engaging with people in a way that you might not be used to in your community. It also requires getting new people involved that aren't just that same 5 folks that meet around the table like you mentioned. I think those are some of those ingredients that really play into success. Hey, we're really serious about this. We're not just going to lament that things aren't going the way we hope they would. We're going to go and try and create our future. Mm-hmm. I think the other part of those projects that really helps is helping groups of people, and anyone could do this. There's no magic that we bring because we have the M, but it's working through that. I remember reading in a magazine an inventor talking about moving from the fantasy to the dream to the design to the plan. And I think that's what we can help people do, and what people can help themselves do is say, we understand this sort of fuzzy idea of what our community could be. Let's add some edges to that. Let's start to make some decisions. Let's cut away some of the marble so we can see what's under there. And let's keep pushing that until we have a plan that has some real steps that are specific, that we can go and do, and that when we're done talking about, we'll keep going beyond the 2 people that led it.
Yeah, you got to just make it real, right? I mean, so talk to any business operator, they're going to have a laundry list of things that are their concerns. So when you do a process like that, what really matters is you actually do something about it, right? So we're there to kind of prod people along to say, well, we took people's time, energy, and effort to figure out what's going on. What's important now is we actually do something. And you do get a laundry list of things that could be at issue. I know we mentioned transition planning. Another one that I know we run into quite a bit in kind of western Minnesota is this issue about housing. Doing a project right now in Pope County, and they got a good base of businesses, and they're all hiring and looking to expand. But they're like, hold on, a lot of our people, actually in upwards of a third, are coming in from outside the county to work here. So where are these people going to live? Because we can only do this so long until the community deals with some of this bigger infrastructure issue around housing. It's going to be kind of difficult for us to continue to expand or to continue to attract new workers. And so, that's sort of where that business community and the local community meet, right? Where the public and the private kind of meet. There's got to be a place where some of these things get figured out. And so once it's identified, you got to take some action.
Well, and as I think of the acronym, we've always talked about this, and I've been involved in some of these studies, of BR&E, business retention and expansion. And what isn't in there, of course, is attracting businesses, because it seems to be that people do have an idea that it's really about having the businesses there, expanding, keeping them there, succession planning, more so than necessarily attracting businesses from the outside, right? Are we seeing a shift there of people understanding that you really have to take care of the businesses in your own community first?
I wish I could say there has been a stronger shift. I mean, there's still a lot of people. You can go to any small town cafe today. People are going to still talk about some window plant that could have been in their town 30-odd years ago, but they didn't pony up the money to get them there, right? And so these are these kind of common stories that we hear town to town to town. And a lot of people still have the notion that things will be solved if we find some savior to come to our community. And quite honestly, it's in some ways it could be more problems than it's worth, right? You're trying to artificially bring somebody to a community where maybe the fundamentals aren't right. You know what I'm saying? And at the same time, you already have these existing businesses that have these housing issues, labor issues, and it can kind of actually, make it more complicated for them in terms of keeping their business and expanding their business there.
So, in the same way, I know that there are some people who have talked about the 30-year-old example that you mentioned, and it may have been 30 years ago that a lot of the businesses may have had a specific agriculture tie. Right. Maybe they don't now, so they have to make that adjustment to these businesses that aren't necessarily connected to agriculture. We've got a couple minutes left in this discussion. So what's the future look like for business retention and expansion, these kind of economic things? What's on the horizon in our areas? And Neil, I'd just like to start with
in our area about expansions. Well, I think it really is town specific. It's hard to say the whole region, all of rural Minnesota. It's hard to lump it all together. But there are plenty of bright spots across the landscape that I've been to and have seen. And one that I'll mention that I think many towns could look at as a great example is the communities of New London and Spicer. And over in New London, you see a main street that has been recreated in the past 10 years. That is full of really rare things to find on rural main streets, like clothing suppliers that really have very specific types of clothing. That there's a men's clothing store and a women's clothing store and a children's clothing store. You also see a variety of arts and other cultural things there in New London. And anyone can do that. There's no reason that it has to be in New London. But having met with the people that work there, knowing that their economic development group and their local leaders, they met multiple times a week, multiple times a month, not just that one time, to really move those things into reality. And that's, I think, where you'll find people doing that and really dedicated, you'll find the success stories.
Mm-hmm. And we also want to talk about where people can go for more information. So people who want to learn more about economic development and ideas and expansion, University of Minnesota Extension, you're both there. That's one place to look?
That's right. I think it's extension.umn.edu/community, or if you get there, you click on the thing that says community. There's a bunch of research reports and of things that we've done on a whole bunch of topics.
Okay.
We also have a toolkit there. If you're just a local person and you're interested, you can click on that retail development toolkit and get loaded with ideas.
Great. Thank you both. Ryan Pesch, Neil Linscheid, University of Minnesota Extension. Thanks for being with us on Compass.
Pleasure.
Yeah. That's it for this week on Compass. Join us next week for more people, places, and issues facing our region. Thanks.